another This Week in Politics. Sorry, I thought I got it all out before I hopped on. A bit of a scratchy throat coming on, I think. So, just wondering how everyone is doing. So, this week has been met with an incredible amount of things going on. Everything from a major flood watch to a war. And if you weren't paying attention super closely, there are a couple of court appearances and more. But just so we're fundamentally clear, we're going to cover all of this and try and condense it into the time that we have tonight. I'm hoping that you'll enjoy this as much as I love creating this space for you. I think as we're watching what's happening with the groups, particularly seeing the outrageous things that are going on with the restrictions of the group, that is particularly concerning to me, and it should be to you too. I give you a safe place to say whatever is going on in our political climate, and they aren't too thrilled with that. But on a positive note, I am in the Queensland flood area, but so far the house is doing really, really, really well. My husband is doing a lot of walking outside, checking, and he knows how to do this stuff. I'm not going to muck around with you. I do not know how to do the Queensland flood check things. But as we discuss where I am, you'll notice that you will hear bits of torrential rain. I'm lucky that I still have an internet connection, actually. There's a lot of people who do not have power in neighbouring suburbs. So, I have to be more than thankful for being able to be with you tonight, and to be able to be thankful that my home is intact. There's a lot of uploads of friends and family that are having major problems where the SES will be attending. One of the neighbours does have a septic issue, and a plumber cannot get out until the rain stops. Recently he was broken into as well, so this same neighbour is having one hell of a week. But that's enough of my personal stuff. I think that we need to jump right in and start talking about this week in politics. Now, everything from the beginning to end, I thought, how can we lay this out that'll touch a wide range of issues, but sensitive to them? Because what we're going to be talking about tonight are some very sensitive things going on. First off, I want to talk about this speech from Albo. So, Albo was in Queensland recently, and I couldn't help but feel like he got what was going on here. This is before the weird rain weather crisis thing happened. But it's interesting to hear the way he sounds when he's talking about this stuff. So here we go. Oh, no sound.
Yep. All good? Sorry, I'll just move my mask. Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming along here today. It's a great pleasure to welcome the leader of the Federal Labor Party, Anthony Albanese, to the Gold Coast, Queensland's second biggest city, one of Australia's biggest city, somewhere that is known internationally for all sorts of fantastic reasons, including what we saw here today. I'll let Anthony talk about our fabulous team of Gold Coast candidates who today will be completed with the announcement of a new candidate. The only thing I wanted to say is that I think people around Australia and around the world know the Gold Coast as a fantastic tourism location, and it absolutely is, with some of the best beaches, best restaurants, best theme parks anywhere in the world. But what we've seen today is that the Gold Coast is a lot more than just that. The Gold Coast...
Okay, you don't need to spiel on what the Gold Coast is. It is a nice place. No one's going to begrudge it that. But I think we need to get to the pub with Albo.
As our candidate here for Moncrief, we're in Moncrief, and Glenn is putting himself forward as someone who wants to represent this electorate because we want representation in the caucus from the Gold Coast. We've got Murray in the Senate, but we need House of Reps members, and Glenn joins Letitia, who's here. We've even got them in the right order. Pam McCready is our candidate for Right. Carl Unger, who I've known a long time, an expert in defence and national security issues, is our candidate for McPherson. And of course Rowan Holtzberger, who I've known for a very long period of time, since we were both teenagers, although he's a bit younger than me. I met Rowan when he was 14 years old. You could join the Labor Party in Broken Hill at age 14, and Rowan is a fantastic candidate for Ford. And we're very hopeful of getting an outstanding result here on the Gold Coast. It's great to be back here today, and it's great to be here at Griffith University for what is a central theme of the major difference.
For anyone just joining us, this is before the flood crisis, and it's during that time frame. So if you're thinking that he did this in the midst of the crisis, he absolutely didn't.
Between Labor and the current tired government without any vision for the future that is seeking a second decade in office. I've said Australia wants a better future, and we want a better future to come out of the pandemic, not just trying to go back to what was there before, but how do we imagine a better future and then set about creating it. And one way we do that is through our world-class university system, our world-class innovation, our world-class science. We come up with fantastic ideas. What we often haven't done, though, is commercialise them. Here we see at Griffith University partnerships on medical technology, on aerospace with industry, helping to create jobs and economic activity here on the Gold Coast, but importantly as well, helping to make an enormous difference to people's lives. The sort of technology that we saw in practice here this morning is quite extraordinary. It would blow your mind that someone who has been through, as a result of an accident, become a quadriplegic can, through the use of technology, through sending brain signals through to the nervous system, begin to get back some exercise into their limbs. Quite extraordinary technology. Technology as well that will assist with operations so that you're not practicing on real people, you're doing it through use of technology so that when the surgical procedure occurs, it's more efficient, it's safer, it costs less, and it makes a positive difference because you know it will work. These are the sort of applications of the future that are available right now. What we need...
Now, this is something that I really need to touch on. This is how serious he is. He's talking about doctors and nurses and real things that we need. This is not a placard thing. This is something Labor truly believes in. Healthcare for everyone. So when he's talking healthcare, you know that it's a genuine thing. And as you hear him talk about, you know, how doctors and nurses need to be trained and, you know, going through those motions and talking about his new candidates that he wants to put in place that know how this stuff works, you hear the amount of confidence that he has in the people that he's putting up. He's putting up people that understand the medical field. I don't hear any of this from the coalition. They don't sort of seem to have a plan that looks anything like this. For instance, there was a moment where they sort of thought it'd be funny to have Josh Frydenberg mock Albanese's economics degree, while he doesn't have one running the nation's economy. Doesn't that seem a little bit ridiculous to anyone? I mean, if we're going to be real with ourselves, in every real sense that we can be, we want people that are actually qualified for the jobs that they're getting. We don't want just buddies elected to a position. And this is why what Albo is doing is so super duper necessary for us to move forward.
To do is to make sure that we commercialise them. And here on the Gold Coast, which is a fantastic destination for tourism, it's a great destination for people to come and engage in sporting activity or to spend some quality time. What we need is to diversify our economy. Queensland, of course, is known under Peter Beattie, I think it was, who coined the term the smart state. Indeed, we need to become the smart country, and part of that is making sure that we work with our universities, that we work with people who are just so smart coming up with these solutions to real world problems, making a difference to people's lives, but also commercialising them. I want a future made in Australia. I don't want to continue to have the circumstance whereby we're...
So this pandemic taught us a lot of things. This is what he's touching on. He's touching on the fundamental value that we're not only hiring Australians to make what we need, but we're not dealing with the same shortage issues that we had during the pandemic. These are all fundamental things that already should have been in place. But of course, Conservatives never quite get around to this stuff. They will tell you that they will, they'll tell you that they'll create a magical fund, and you never hear of it again. I think that it's quite clear there is a stark difference here in how our governments talk about leading. So if you're talking a left-leaning government, it really does lead. And it's shown that in the proof is in the pudding in doing each of these things. But don't take my word for it. Take theirs when they're talking about this stuff. They have a history of doing this. You know, reinvesting in doctors and nurses and NDIS and the NBN and all that kind of stuff. Labor has the policy. Liberals have, well, let's just bring out a bigger bill. I mean, it's a fundamentally flawed moment for me to listen to them harp on about how they're better economic managers while not having a person in economics and yet mocking someone who does.
Offshoring everything that we can overseas, and then we have to fix them and make them fit for purpose here. We need to be more resilient as an economy. The shock of the pandemic told us that, and there's no area where that is more obvious in areas of medicine and healthcare. Because when the pandemic hit, we couldn't even supply enough PPE. We couldn't supply enough ventilators. We had to import so many of the vaccines and, of course, rapid antigen tests. And we know the government was so slow in all of that. That's why, as well, I want an Australia.
This is something that I think Albo has gotten very good at. It's not just a photo opportunity. He actively says, here is our deficit, here's what we're going to do. But he also does another thing. He points out that the deficit is very real within the current government. And he does it with such conviction that you know that it's real. And you know that if an event like this was to ever happen again, Albo would go, here's what we got, people. That's real. That's real. That's real leadership.
Australian Centre for Disease Control, which is world's best practice to make sure that we prepare for the next pandemic. But we know that international shocks can come from conflict, can come from a pandemic, can come from cyber security issues. What we need to do is to make sure that we have a stronger Australia, that we prepare for shocks in the future by really building up our national resilience and our sovereign capability. And the way to do that is right here, working with our universities, having them work with industry to make sure that we're a stronger Australia going forward.
Okay. That really did highlight everything we needed. all of those fundamental things that Anthony Albanese was talking about. Actually electing people to do the job that they're meant to do. Which I thought it was a weird position for the LNP to take, to mock Anthony Albanese for having an economics degree, or to mock him because he wants to put doctors in a position, retired doctors in a parliamentary seat, so they can help distribute what will be needed for any other pandemics. I find it really, really strange when they're like, that's bad. And I'm like, why? Why you weirdos want to die on that hill? For real, there is a million things you could be doing. Instead, this is what you do with your time. That's an incredible indictment of where you are. I didn't think. You can join me if you like, Paul, up here. I can add you here. There we go. Hello. So I think that that's an incredible indictment of where we are right now. Not just because I think that Anthony Albanese is the sort of leader that we don't just need for now. I think we need him going into the future. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we're going to get the government to be what we need them to be. I'm really annoyed that they have the conversation in such a downtrodden way, as if having an economist be, like this thing that he should be mocked for. Do you have anything to say, Paul? You're my very first guest on these lives.
Not much. I just got on. I'm not sure what are you talking about at the moment?
Okay, we just played a video clip of Anthony Albanese's speech on getting more doctors and nurses in places where they're needed in Queensland and the rest of the country, and actually hiring people that know how to do this stuff to distribute the pandemic needs, and actually building the infrastructure for a pandemic, like all the proper quarantine facilities, all the medical needs that we need.
Yeah, I think some years ago, I remember when Rudd was in charge, they actually did a report on this, and the government got rid of it when they got in, which was stupid, because here we are in a pandemic that they did this study on or reference to, and we're nowhere better off. We're back to starting again, and there'll be another inquiry done about it, and we already had one. So it's just inaction and ineptness by this current government is beyond the pale, to be quite honest.
It's an incredible indictment to see a government that doesn't actually want to govern, but instead strip it all away, but then tell you, no, it's the other side doing that. And you're like, what? No, you cannot gaslight me that bad. What an incredible situation. And I think that I've never ever seen anything like this before. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a government that takes photos in the middle of really serious situations but goes, I don't hold a hose. What? No, you weirdo. You know what I mean?
Well, 100%. Yeah, he's the photo op from hell, isn't he?
Definitely. Okay, so we have more topics to get through. I hope you're willing to endure this with me. You can stay as long as you like. I'm happy to hear on everything that you've got to say to do with these topics. Are you happy with that?
Sure, I'll stay as long as I can.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. And you know what? I'm so excited. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. It's gone an extra octave up because of my excitement levels. Okay, I'm a real adult and I'm really doing this. Okay, next topic. So, we got the Queensland floods. Now, if you haven't seen it, oh my gosh, there are some places that are literally inundated. But take a look at just how serious this thing is. I'm going to show you a 2-minute video not far from where I am now. This is literally not far from where I am.
Goodna, near Woogaroo Creek, and I'll just show you the Goodna Football Club grounds, the soccer club, as most people probably still know it, at Kippen Park. That's the width of Woogaroo Creek. We've got the SES. It might be the Marburg Fire Brigade people who are here blocking Alice Street, which goes over to Gales. This is an extraordinary event. The water is just below the level of the bridge. And I'll show you these properties here in Edna Street, Goodna. Their frontage is on Edna Street at Goodna. You can see that it's come right into their yard. Now, they're not very far from Woogaroo Creek. If you look through over at the distance in that house, that last house in Edna Street, you can see how close the water is, to them. So, Nicole, what's the level of the Brisbane River at Goodna at the moment?
11.42 right now at Brisbane River in Goodna, 11.42
metres. Now that compares with the Brisbane River flood at Goodna in 2011 of 16.5 metres. You can see quite different from the 2011 flood, which came up very, very quickly when the Ivanhoe Dam got to 190%, and then suddenly they had to release the water, and the water flowed downstream very quickly and flooded the Goodna area very quickly. This is quite different. It's just going up centimetre by centimetre every few minutes.
And you can see the inches. You can see them creep.
So that's from Paul Tully, our local member. He is an amazing man that actually went out into the field to show what was going on. Now, if you're not aware of just how inundated that Queensland is right now, I'm not sure how many people can actually remember the 2011 and how horrible that was. I wasn't here for that, thank goodness. But I tell you what, it's now getting a little bit worrying where I am. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I watched a bit of it on SBS tonight, watching the Premier talk about it. It reminds me of the last big flood that you had, seeing the same pontoons going down the Brisbane River. Same thing all over again.
You would kind of think that this time people had better provisions in place, but it sounds like there's a lot of life lost. The last I heard, it was 7 lives. That's a lot of lives lost in a very short amount of time. One of them was an SES volunteer, which is incredibly sad.
Not good at all.
I'm not sure how they were going to handle that situation as a whole, but I do know that this is something that Queensland will have to keep enduring. So I think that we're going to have to get better at talking about how we manage these sorts of cycles. I think the Premier has done amazing so far, but the loss of life, 7 lives have been lost at this point so far that I was able to catch up on, which is an incredible thing for the state of Queensland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's more footage here. I just got to find... Oh, here we go. No, check out this one. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen come up as of yet. Okay, so if you haven't seen this, this is interesting. You have Peter Dutton trying to set up a fundraiser because a minister from government can't ask the government to be helpful. He thinks that a $25,000 fundraiser needs to happen. Huh? That's weird. You can't make this stuff up. This is how ridiculous they get. They don't think with their real minds. They think, well, let's just do something weird like set up a GoFundMe for this thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't get it either.
You would think that there would be like a better plan than like a fundraiser. You think that you'd go to Scott Morrison and say, look, buddy, we've got an election coming up. Let's splash a little bit of cash around to make sure that these people are able to, like in terms of a flood package and to secure the dams and, you know, more sandbags and whatever it takes. You know, money for the SES crews. I don't know how this stuff works. Like I said at the start, my husband is the one that walks outside, tells me if we're safe, and he watches the alerts. I'm very lucky. A lot of people aren't as lucky, and where our house is holding up really, really well. A lot of people don't have power not far from us. Guy over the road's got a bit of sewage in his house. It's not going great for some people. But, I mean, this whole GoFundMe thing, did he think it was funny? Like, is he taking the piss, or is this a genuine GoFundMe? Like, does he keep the money for himself like they do whenever they raise money for this stuff? Do you reckon
or does it just sit there and gather interest like all the other ones?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I never ever saw the bushfire fund or anything like that. Did you?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I can't work them out.
It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, the next one we've got. Now, I've never seen Brisbane Street like this. This is a new one. Check it out. Is that a bus? That's a bus. No, or is it a car? It's something. It's something big. Oh my gosh. If you look closely, you'll notice there's a car in front of the bus. Oh, the car's gone. That's gone.
Thing online.
What happens now? That car's you can't use that again, or is that how it works?
Yeah, I just tried to zoom in. It looks like a bus or minibus or something.
So there's a bus there, and then there's a car in front of the bus. Are you not able to use these items again? I just wonder. Yeah, it doesn't look great. This is going to be an interesting thing. I've never seen water this high. I wouldn't be going anywhere near it. Here's, I don't know where this is, but I know that it's local. Oh, a little bit too big. And I got a little bit excited before I did it. Okay. This is one that I think people would like to see.
Look at that.
Jeez, and it's gone. There's just...
Oh my god, look at that. That just broke through that whole ferry terminal.
A ferry terminal. Jeez.
There was a boat in there. Oh my god.
Oh, there's a boat. They're serious about this. Look at it. Look how close that water is to the lip. And people are like, no, better record it, better record it. Don't get to safety. Better record the crazy part.
Look at that.
Like, gotta have a camera. Which is just crazy. I definitely would be getting the higher ground, not these people. They're like, nope. Oh, my next story is fun. Oh. Okay, so the next one is hold on. We got Stuart Roberts' Blind Little Trust. If you didn't catch this moment in a Senate, I think it's a Senate hearing, it's super interesting. This exposes everything. These people have sneaky little money, little hidey holes. I don't know if you've seen them before, Paul, but they have amazing little money hidey holes. I didn't Christian Porter or one of the other ones have another resign over he'd rather resign over a blind trust than tell him who fronted the money? Was that Christian Porter?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. The blind. That's right. He didn't want to reveal what the money was it?
Yeah, and he'd rather resign rather than say,
yep.
Hey, here's who gave me money. And it's like, that sounds a little bit shady and a little bit like national security should be having a bit of a chat with you. You know, like, where did it come from?
It's a bit like when the current US ambassador in America Arthur Sinodinos got amnesia at an inquiry about another fund that they were running in New South Wales.
Oh, do go on. I'm listening.
That was a ripper.
Oh, geez, I bet it was.
And then he had to stand down from the Senate or the House because while the inquiry was going, and then all of a sudden he got a nice little plum job over in the US.
Isn't he the same guy who got criminals to build him a bookcase and then complained about it? The criminal bookcase guy, Arthur Sinodinos. I remember that being the weird thing that he did. There's always like these weird stories behind these politicians. They can't just be normal people. They have to have this really bizarre thing going on where you're like, is this real? Like, how do I deal with what you're doing? Okay, now this one, I think it's funny, but it's not funny because you realise no, they're taking the piss now. This is bad. This is a video. Check
I'd like
this
to put
out.
on the record that Minister Roberts has declared that he has no involvement or ownership in any disability provider.
If Minister Roberts' investments are all in a blind trust, and he says he doesn't know what investments are in his blind trust, then how does he know that he has no investments in NDIS companies? It's either a blind trust or it's not.
I'd like to put on the record that Minister Roberts has declared that he has no involvement or ownership in any disability provider.
If Minister Roberts' investments are all in a blind trust, and he says he doesn't know what investments are in his blind trust, then how does he know that he has no investments in NDIS companies? It's either a blind trust or it's not.
Yeah, I don't know how they get away with saying that. How can you go, no, I absolutely can tell you I have no affiliate with the NDIS funding, but at the same time say, but I don't actually know what we're invested in.
Exactly.
You can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other, buddy. Pick a lane, stay with it, and hey, don't lie to us about what it is. Because you know eventually there's going to be an inquiry. And they're going to go, you really did do the thing that you were accused of doing. That's kind of funny that you were, feigning outrage over this. You know what I mean? How they do that fake, how dare you accuse me of that?
Yeah, correct. Yep. He's one of the best performers in the Senate, Mr. Watts.
You watch him and he's like, oh no, I got a Rolex watch for sure. And I thought it was fake. And I'm like, what Chinese government hands you a fake Rolex, you dickhead? But better than that, not only did he get those, but on his submissions, he never admitted in them that he returned them like he was supposed to for a special interest gift. He was
correct. Didn't put it on the list, did he?
No, and he and his wife both received those, so it wasn't just a little bit of a whoopsie, I got you. This was like a legit bad moment for him where he and his wife have still got these Rolex watches. And you have to wonder why government would hand you Rolex watches. What was the deal? What were they getting in return for that? $250,000 watches, and they're going to be like, yeah, there you go, it's just a watch.
Exactly. No one gets nothing for nothing. That's why all those laws need to be changed about, donations. I mean, I like the one that I saw the other day that says, anything over $1,000 should be declared, part of the interest, because no one gives you money for nothing. There's a reason they give you money, because they want something in return.
You see, years ago, Labor tried to sort of get around. And things are a little bit shady. They literally had a moment where someone was walking into the office with just under the $1,000 threshold that their party would allow. And they were literally had these tiny little paper bags Labor was trying to mock that at the start, but you know, some of the Labor members, but now they've sort of realised, no, it's bad. And Liberals have more money, and it's not funny anymore to mock, because I don't know how the Conservative have so much money, but they do. They're like cash overload. They got so much money that they never know what to do with it. Where we're sitting there going, hey, we just want to fund some basic stuff, you know, so people have things. And they're like, no, sorry. You know, if you want the homeless to be fed, that's not a thing. You don't get to have that. And they're like, but the tax cuts for the rich and franking credits, we can so have that. I'm like, you weirdos.
Every portfolio that man touches turns to mud.
Absolutely. And it's continuous. It's not just one or two things. This is like a running theme of this party. It's an incredible thing to watch.
Sorry, I'm eating.
No, you're right. Then there's the one that you sent me today. This one, super duper. I was like, the moment I read it, I was like, no, dude, this was like a gold. Do you know that because of the war in Ukraine and the floods and everything else, I hadn't really like deep dived into too much of what else was going on. This little story is thanks to Paul. So everyone be thankful for this one. Okay. Oh, I better hold on. Fix that. Okay. This is amazing. I think that the reason that made this one so amazing is because, one, I hadn't heard of it, and two, because this is like their dirty little secret that they didn't really want to let us know of. It's like the news cycle was almost in their favour to an outrageous point. Then even I didn't catch it, and I'm a huge avid. I catch everything. This one I didn't. So thank you to Paul for making this one possible. Okay, so if for those of you who don't know what happened, Prime Minister Scott Morrison's bid to take over the administrative wing of the New South Wales Liberal Party ahead of the federal election has been dealt a blow, with the Supreme Court ruling in favour of a legal challenge brought by a member of the New South Wales Division of Executive Committee. What this basically was a way of saying, I want to control who gets in and out of this party. It's a new way of branch stacking, but from the Prime Minister up. He didn't want to have these little elections that normally happen in the state.
That's right. He
Election
wanted to
branches.
appoint.
Oh, yeah,
He wanted to appoint and overrule the New South Wales executive. That's what he wanted to do.
I think that this may have, this is going to be controversial, but I think that this may have been an idea from the viewpoint of the Hillsong Church, because they have appointed a lot of people that do come from the Hillsong area. And that's what makes this so interesting, is that the philosophy behind it is get as many Hillsong members as they can in, so they can all have this same doctrine that they're working off. If you listen to some of their stuff, it becomes quite bizarre. But it gets weirder, because Scott Morrison doesn't just take things. Originally, take a look at the way that he got the seat of Cook. He plays dirty right from the outset. He doesn't just go, no, I can win this. No, he goes, no, I won't win this. But not only will I not win this, but I'll show you a way that I can steal it. I'm like, dude, that's not a thing. I'm glad he got sued at his whole eternity for this. And that we can never ever forget that he stole the seat of Cook from someone else. That was
the Michael Tauck affair.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He does this thing. This is like a pattern of behaviour, if it will, of the way that he behaves. Like, if
Correct.
I lose something, I'm just gonna take it.
Yep.
It's like, no, you can't just take this. This is not your seat. You cannot just have the seat. You have to earn it. To even think that you could be bold enough to just go, no, I'm just going to take the Liberal Party branch now. This is the new direction. The decision handed down Friday does not prevent a federal takeover, but will put pressure on the party officials to strike a deal endorsing sitting MPs, select candidates quickly in other key seats. So what that essentially means is Scott Morrison isn't done playing with this. This isn't a toy that he's done playing with. What will eventually happen is this will supersede into itself, and this will become his beast. And I knew that he had something to do with Gladys being gone. Now, I'm not saying Gladys isn't a monster. I'm more saying that he's the hatchet wielder whenever something doesn't go right. He can't fire ministers that he knows in his cabinet are incompetent, but he can fire a premier. It's an interesting thing to watch. Matthew Kemaluzzi from the hard right faction. Now, that's a really, really, really big point. The fact that he's getting from the hard right. He's not just taking a pull from, to level things out. This is what conservatives do. They have to go to an extreme. They're not just happy to sit in the wings and then go, I will find a candidate that's liked by everyone. No. They've got to go hard right. This is where they lose elections every time. Let him do it. This will destroy the LNP. Let him do it. This will eat them up, and there won't be anything else. Successfully challenged legal advice obtained by the party, which suggested New South Wales Liberal officials, including President Philip Ruddock. What was he? He's that Children Overboard guy, isn't he? Do you remember him being behind the Children Overboard saga with John Howard?
No, it was Peter Reith, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, see, I could have it wrong.
Peter Reith was the man behind it.
I know that name, Philip Ruddock. He's done something dodgy. They all have, but...
Philip Ruddock was the minister at the time for immigration, but Peter Reith was the one, and Ruddock behind... Well, Peter Reith, I think, released the information about the Children Overboard, and then it was carried on by John Howard, and that's how he got in, basically.
Yeah, they did it with lying about the whole incident.
Yeah. And now they're reframing that with this election to be, he's trying to reframe the war as being his children overboard scenario this time round. Just a different version of, we'll decide and we're tough on security. But, I mean, he had his opportunity the other day when supposedly there was a laser pointed at, RAF planes above a Chinese ship. Now, you could go back and look at that now and think, well, hang on, Australia's part of the Five Eyes. What was the ship doing in the waters? Were they eavesdropping on intelligence that was hearing Australia talk to America and the Five Eyes about what was going to happen with the Putin affair that's now a war? So you could really, go back and look at that intervention and think maybe they were there for a reason.
Oh, that's super interesting. See? This is why I love having you here. I'm not just excited on a small level. This is amazing to have your insight because I can also do the
Facebook page
back and forth with you on that. Okay, so Philip Ruddock would cease to hold office after February 28th due to a failure to hold annual general meetings. Why weren't they holding general meetings? Was it like a COVID thing, or did they just decide? I don't know. Do you know why they did that?
What's this one about, Karina?
So they stopped. So Philip Ruddock would cease to hold office after February 28th due to a failure to hold annual general meetings. Why did they fail to hold those meetings?
No idea on that one.
What a weird position to have. Like, they would just stop having the meetings and he'd know that would risk his job. Like, did he want... I don't know. There's something in that. I'm telling you. There's something in that detail. in those meetings. I would say that they were proper meetings that he was supposed to attend and didn't. Mr. Morrison and the Federal Liberal Party given the New South Wales division until Monday to rectify the legal situation.
Yeah, I think I know now. Ruddock runs the New South Wales part of it, I think. And what ScoMo's trying to do, he's trying to override it and put in the people that he wants to be selected as MPs for particular seats. And what the New South Wales Liberals did was actually take the feds to court, issuing that, well, our members have to say of who becomes an MP. The PM hasn't got a right to override our party rules in New South Wales. So I think that's what the trouble is. He's in trouble with, because they, they're taking each other to court, which is bizarre in itself, to try and keep his rules going.
That's an incredible position to have. But it gets a little bit crazier. And then Mr. Morrison and the Federal Liberal Party have given the New South Wales division until Monday to rectify the legal situation. Also pre-select candidates for 3 seats currently held by sitting Liberal MPs, including Mr. Morrison's closer ally, Immigration Minister Alex Hawke. I know that name too. What is he known for?
Well, Alex Hawke was a returned veteran. He only became an MP after he came back from the Iraq War.
Oh, but there was another one, Andrew Hastie, that there's a lot of controversy with him as well.
Yeah, there's 2 of them that are returned veterans that became MPs. And then you've got the former general, Moylan as well, who was a military officer.
Last week we discussed the issue of Ben Roberts, which I found super disturbing. I didn't know what to do with that. And how the Liberal government was sort of like, hey, you know that we can sort of keep him around. And I'm like, he bragged about shooting a kid in the head. I don't think that that's someone that you want to keep. But Liberal Party values, I suppose. I don't know. And then you've got what's the Andrew Lemming, the dude who puts his phone up women's skirts. Like, they're really grubby people. They are really
that's weird.
Ugh. Yeah, it's legit. Andrew Lemming he was upskirting women. There's such a grubby party, and the way that they talk about women in the party, they're so gross, so gross. But on Friday, the New South Wales Supreme Court upheld Mr. Kemaluzzi's challenge, overruling the legal advice obtained by the party, declaring members of the state executive could remain in office underneath the party's constitution. The party has a constitution and it's democratic. There you go, people. Something that the LNP actually has. It has a little democracy. And that's probably why they're pretty upset about it now, because they're like, well, we wanted to be the hard right. We wanted to wreck stuff. And the thing is, do you know of any court challenges that this government has actually won? They have this really embarrassing moment of continually looking like they're losing court battles. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's bad. Are you all right, Paul? Oh, you're right.
I have noticed it. And you know that the amazing thing is the party's full of lawyers, the Liberal Party. And the thing is, they seem to be bad ones.
Yeah. How about we just look? I mean, how's Christian Porter's form? I'm going to sue. Okay, no, I'm not. I'm just going to struck a deal with you. Dude, you're the Attorney General, like the biggest lawyer that you can possibly know. And I would say he looked at it, knew he was going to lose, and then went with, well, I might lose, so better pull out. And it's like, why would you take a case, being the biggest lawyer in the land, that you were just going to lose?
Yeah, well, the big story is broken now that he's obviously he's leaving Parliament, but he's apparently supposed to stand for a big case in Western Australia that's due to start around about the time the elections are called. So they're wondering whether he's going to be able to have time to actually do the homework for the case. Apparently, it's quite a large case in Western Australia. But
what case is that?
it's some big case. I can't remember what it is, but it's quite a large case. And because he's going back to his old cloak and dagger of being a lawyer, so he's already been given this job. And yeah, they're all saying they don't know who's going to be able to do the work that's required to actually represent the case that he's got to do.
Oh, that's going to be super interesting to see play out, because Christian Porter does have an amazing ability to look like an idiot and pretend like he didn't fall on his face. It's going to be incredible. And I mean, I think that that's part of how this party does it. And they have an AGM, which is another annual general meeting expected to date. No member of the state executive ceases to hold office as to such a reason, only in which circumstance. See, that's a really weird position to have. The state executive is responsible for running pre-selections in federal seats. So they do have this system that's supposed to work. And the Liberal government does have all these weird things where they pop up and they go, how can I make myself look a little bit worse and then pretend like the other side is worse? I look at it and go, that's a weird thing to do. I never ever know what to do with that. Friday's ruling does not prevent a federal takeover of the New South Wales division. Oh, can you imagine if he actually pulls it off? Like, do you think that it'll make headlines if he actually pulled it off and pulled off his little coup? What do you think? You're going to hear a whimper from the New South Wales Liberal Party, or do you think they're going to go with their tail between their legs?
You won't hear anything.
Oh, because I haven't heard any of them say anything. No one has said a word. Well, have you noticed? Not one MP has gone, hey, yeah, I don't like being taken over by the Prime Minister. No one has said anything. That's so weird.
Well, he's got 3 seats that incumbents are in trouble. He's got North Sydney, which is in trouble. He's got Susan Lee, who's I think, what is she? She's the portfolio of what is it? Climate, I think she is, or something. I can't remember what her portfolio is.
I never know what they do. They shift it around. I thought that she had health minister there for a while.
She was, yeah. I mean, she seems not to be from their far right, at least anyway. But the thing that frustrates me about the females in the Liberal Party is they don't seem to find their voice until they leave politics, and then all of a sudden you hear what they really think, and you think, well, why didn't you do that while you're in the party? Party can't change unless you do it while you're in there.
One of the things I said to Julie Bishop on Twitter was, look, you can have your little Dorothy, there's no place like home high heels, but you should have actually done something when you could.
Exactly. You know? She was just like another bloke when she was in there. She went hard.
Oh,
and now all of a sudden she's got a different opinion. I thought, well, why don't you have that when you're in there?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. What makes this even more interesting, because she's involved in this little thing. The factional warfare to endorse 3 sitting MPs. Mr. Hawke, Susan Lee, Trent Zimmerman.
That's it. Trent Zimmerman in his trouble, yep.
Oh, wait. Didn't he have a separate contract? See, there's too much to these things to pull apart. Trent Zimmerman himself had controversies. What went on with him? I remember he did something. Oh, don't make me Google it. I'm going to Google it. I can't help myself.
Well, he just crossed the floor, didn't he, on a vote because about the religious freedom bill, because I think he's gay. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter whether he is or he isn't.
I think one of his children is.
Okay. So he crossed the floor on that.
He did, yes, and that was
great. That didn't go down too well. And he's worried about his seat. When he got the seat off the worst treasurer we ever had, old Joe, Sloppy Joe. Joe Hockey, when Joe went to America.
The Lena's line, you know.
Correct. Yep.
But I'll have a cigar around the side and no one will notice me.
Correct.
Yeah, they got these infamous titles. Like, you ever notice that they don't become famous for doing something good for the economy? It always turns into, well, what were you doing as you celebrated the Lifters and Leaners speech? having a bit of
Exactly.
a Cuban cigar. That's what we
Yeah,
were
correct.
doing. It's a bit weird though, it's like.
Yep.
6 other seats. All the seats are ordinarily winnable for the Liberal Party, including Hughes. That's Craig Kelly, right? The seat of Hughes
Correct.
is
Yeah, yeah,
Craig
yeah.
Kelly.
Yep.
Yes! Imagine if we can get rid of the crazy Craig Kelly. Oh my God. Is it really up for contention? Will he be gone?
He'll be gone because he's left the party. He's now running for PUP.
Yeah, but is it winnable under Palmer
I think
United?
I don't think it is. From what I can gather, the electorate's not far from where I live, and the electorate's a bit over the man.
Yep.
I think he's going to be showing the door. I think I'll be very surprised if he gets up.
You see him at those crazy rallies, and you're looking at him like and then he walks into Parliament going, "Did you have some sort of I don't know sonic waves noises going on?" And you're like, "You really are that slow, aren't you? How did you get this position?"
Yeah,
Like,
well, he was a failed. What was he? A failed
he sold
furniture
lounges or
salesman.
something. Yeah.
Furniture salesman. Yeah, it didn't work.
I was talking to Bea about that on Twitter, and she's like, "Do you know that he just sold furniture, which
That's it.
isn't a bad job at all? Anyone who does that, congratulations, it's great. You're working part of the economy. I mean, Jerry Harvey seems to not do so great at it either. His profits are way down. But I mean, if you think about it on so many menial levels, he couldn't even sell lounges to people. Now he wants to sell to the Australian public, but there's some big sounds that are scaring off people. I don't know. He's a weirdo. How could you do that with a straight face, walk into Parliament and say what he said? It's almost like Pauline Hanson and the Burqa stunt. You look at him and they think, "Yep, nailed it," and I'm looking at him like, "You're a dickhead. What political gain did you get from doing this?"
But what the thing I don't understand, and I say it all the time to people, if you think you're doing a protest and you're going to vote for PUP or you're going to vote for Pauline Hanson, then don't waste your vote because they vote blue. Just vote blue. Why
Yeah,
would you waste your vote? If you're going to have a vote, make your vote count. Don't vote for either of them because all they do is vote for the government all the time. So just vote blue.
don't encourage them though, because
No, I know, but what's the point? You know what I mean? It's not a protest vote.
you see
They
the
think they're doing a
guy,
protest vote. It's not a protest vote.
from the New Liberals try and convince me about how awesome his vote would be, and I just obliterated him with, "You realise what you're saying is totally a Labor thing that you're trying to pounce on. You can see that Labor's popular, so now you're trying to come in and say all the things that you think is popular," and they're like, "Yeah, but Labor has a record," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure you can lead as the next Prime Minister. I'm sure that that's a helpful vote. Like, what are you doing in this space? It's a weird thing to be doing. And you can't call yourselves the New Liberals. Everyone's going to think that you're just Liberals that couldn't get elected into the regular Liberals. That's how I'm sort of viewing them right now. I don't know what they really are. They haven't really got themselves out there. Oh, and the seat of Warringah is up.
Yeah, it is.
Doesn't that lady have it at the moment? Stegel.
Yeah, but they've got no one against her at the moment. They tried to muddy the waters the other week with her so-called funding campaign, or people that donated to her for her campaign. It was some millionaire that was divided up between family members. And when they made the donation, they put it as one check instead of 5 individual checks, which would have been okay.
Oh,
So
jeez.
um, so now they're trying to say, well, she's bad and she stands for this. Well, you know what? There's so many donations that are dodgy, and there's been funds set up under different names, and like I said before, when the New South Wales was the treasurer for the New South Wales Liberal Party was Arthur Sinodinos, and got amnesia, but seemed to remember other things really well. And now,
Yeah.
got the posting in the US as a nice thank you. They've been dodgy with funds forever. I mean, and of course, you'll always get the cat's cry from the media and from the right about saying that the Labor Party always gets their funds from the union, which is true. And why
Yeah.
do they do that? Because the union formed the Labor Party. So, at
That's
least it's
right.
got some sort of history.
with Arthur getting that position, what happened to Joe Hockey?
Joe just left, and they gave him. Actually, he took a posting in the US as the US ambassador. Remember, he got the nice little posting.
That's what I
And
mean. If what's Arthur doing then?
well, then what happened was Hockey finished up, and he stayed in the US. He got to align himself with Trump and the Trump campaign, and said, "I'm going to stay and live in the US," and resigned from Parliament. And then that's when Trent Zimmerman got in, and then we had Arthur got the we've got to get rid of Arthur problem, and we sent him to the US.
You know, that was, I thought he was a goner once he dobbed in the Trump campaign over the Hurricane Crossfire investigation. Joe Hockey was actually a person who had information about all of that stuff going on. If you remember, he gave up information about links to Russia.
Yeah.
And yeah, like
That's right. And it came back
incredible.
to here, and he had a conversation apparently with a Russian ambassador at a dinner or drinks somewhere, and it got back to him, and it got back through someone else as well. Anyway, yeah, it got all messy.
It did. So here's Annette's comment. The problem is people who will vote for them are generally clueless and don't realise that. It's exactly right. I think that this is why we need to teach civics in school. We need to teach them how to do this. Because I have a lot of these like ethical questions with my children. Like, when you vote, you're not just voting someone in that you think is warming a seat. They're actually going to do something that fixes or ruins the nation. So you got to figure out who you're voting for. Yeah. And I do civics at home, but a lot of people aren't interested in politics. And I think Annette's right. They just don't know what's going on. And that's part of the problem of where we got to. As we're dealing in this, it seems to be this continuous thing where we're dealing in this massive misinformation about what voting does and how secure it really is. You had the Liberals trying to scare people off with, well, you must need ID and you must need this, and you know, and I think Annette's by and large right. They just don't have a clue what's happening. But further into this article, you realise how bad that for the Liberals their position actually is. And this is why I think Scott Morrison is trying to hijack the party. The Liberals,
it's a massive problem. They haven't got 3 seats or 4 seats where they've got no MPs announced for by the Liberal Party, and they haven't got a chance to get out there and say, "Hi, I'm Joe Bloggs. I'm for this party, and this is my ethos or whatever." They've got no one yet because they haven't been able to pre-select anyone because ScoMo's been trying to get in the Hillsong mob, and anyone who knows anything about the history of the Liberal Party and in politics in general knows that before Hillsong came along, it used to be the Masons. Johnny Howard always used to have the secret handshake. I don't know if you know about the secret handshake. You used to be able to put your thumb across on the first knuckle, second knuckle, and that determined what where you were in the Masons. And the Masons were heavily, all the senior police, the senior AMBOs, and a lot of politicians were all Masons. Now the Masons are gone, and it's been taken over by Hillsong.
Oh, geez, it's a shit show for everyone involved. The Liberal Senator Coneta Fierravanti-Wells is a factional ally of Mr. Kemazuri. Emailed the party members on Friday evening to celebrate the victory and praise Mr. Kemazuri for his courage. We now have the certainty that there's no need of the basis for any federal intervention. Isn't she part of the government, Coneta Fierravanti-Wells?
Yeah, she's an MP.
And yet she's celebrating the fact that it didn't work. They're seeking
Yeah, because she's part of
democracy.
she's in New South Wales faction, I think.
Oh, and they would have her out because she's a woman. They're gonna
Correct.
They're gonna knife her bad. Those seeking to impede on democracy in the party should get out of the way and respect the important role that the members have. That the membership is entitled to selecting their candidates. Many New South Wales Liberals believe Mr. Hawke and Mr. Morrison deliberately frustrated the pre-selection process in order to run down the clock to justify a federal intervention through which they could directly appoint candidates ahead of the expected election in May. The judgment does not break the impasse on the state executive, said one member. Oh my God.
It's a mess.
They're really going to go for it. They're not done. They're not done. And I think that this is a sign that they're panicking now. They're in like, oh no, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose big unless we take the big hand, you know, of government and wield it this way. And I think that that's quite clear what they're going to do. And they dob on themselves so constantly. They're not even good at telling a good fib. It has to be something so extravagant that they end up dobbing on themselves. 1 second. Okay, next we're going to talk about, I've been wanting to do this all night. Apparently Clive Palmer needed 3 Ambos. Not to worry, Clive Palmer is safe at home, resting up well. But if you listen to his advisors, he was telling people a whole different story. Follow this if you will. His advisor was telling people that it was a precautionary thing that he was going to the hospital. Yeah, sure, because 3 Ambos just rock up for a precautionary tale. That seems entirely likely. Good story. But it gets a little bit weirder with this story. They've got some very bizarre ways. Like, when you have a look at how he looks rough. He doesn't just look like a guy who got in and out. Look at him. He looks like he had a rough time with it.
He's in Sydney, isn't he? He's got his yacht that he built. And supposedly he's going on a yacht in Sydney.
I know that he was at the weird pink, I don't know if you've heard me call it this, the pink-eyed convoy, the people to Canberra people, you know, the weirdos that thought it would be funny to be anti-vax and give each other pink eye and not watch their children. He rocked up to that. That's where he got this. And then he came home and he needed to be taken to hospital on the Sunshine Coast. It's pretty funny. If they don't want to be laughed at, don't be hilarious.
What was the thing he was plugging? The colochrome or whatever? What was the thing he was plugging? Obviously, he hasn't had any himself.
Oh, the hydroxychloroquine. I
Correct.
Ever say it right. That's the first thing I said to his advisor. I was like, wait, dude, you were the one that was like, he bought millions of dollars worth of this hydroxychloroquine and never actually said that he would take it.
Yeah.
It become this non-issue the moment he got COVID. They were like, no, we're just going to go straight to ambulances. And it's like, okay, dude, that's cool. But remember, someone like him can't just rock up to a hospital. Listen to how even the reporter makes it sound. It's not funny, but it's funny.
Melissa, we know that 3 ambulances responded to the billionaire's Gold Coast home earlier this morning. It's understood he was suffering from COVID-like symptoms, which included shortness of breath. He was then conveyed here to the Pindara Private Hospital, where he did undergo some treatment, and he was also subject to a COVID test, Melissa, but he's yet to go public with those results. We also understand that his wife was feeling unwell, but we do know now that she was able to drive herself here to the hospital, but she didn't undergo any treatment. Clive Palmer has since been released here from Pindara Private, but Melissa, he said very little on the way out the door. Clive, how are you feeling, mate? Can we ask how you're going? Clive, was it COVID that you got, mate? Clive, was it COVID that you got, mate, or how are you feeling? Melissa, I think it's worth noting that Clive Palmer cancelled his address at the National Press Club that was scheduled for Tuesday, stating that he felt unwell. We know that the leader of the United Australia Party has always been very vocal about his stance against the vaccine. Anytime a journalist has ever asked him whether he's had the jab, he always says that he hasn't. But If he is COVID positive, he will have to follow the rules like everybody else, which now means, Melissa, he will have to isolate until he can provide a negative test.
We'll wait and see, Peter. Thank you.
Can I truly say, I think, one, he's lost a lot of weight. I'm going to congratulate the man. That if you've seen what he looked like before when he was in Parliament, he was a lot bigger. So I think that one of his statements that he made online afterwards, saying that he is a lot healthier than what he used to be, I have to agree. But here's the deal. They don't send out 3 ambulances because you're just having a slight issue. And I think the other thing is to see him wearing a mask. When he was at that pink eye to Canberra moment, he was not wearing a mask. He was sort of just letting it all fly, and he thinks he's hilarious for doing so. I think this one may have given him a bit of a scare. I know when I got sick, I definitely was like, oh no, it's pretty real. I'm not messing around with it. Have you had COVID?
No, I haven't, but one of my daughters has.
Oh, it's an awful situation.
Yeah, she didn't have this one. She had the previous one, Delta.
Oh, the more serious one. The real, okay, the bad man comes to knock on your door to go, hey, it's
That's
time.
the one. Yep. They check on you every day.
Yeah, I've heard. That one has a very high death rate too. The Omega one didn't. It was deadly, but not as deadly as the Delta. So the Delta was the deadliest strain of them all. And I remember getting vaccinated at the height of that because I was having a lot of issues doing it. And I drove everyone I knew, piled them into a car. Not even kidding. I was like rocking up with all these people, and they're like, where'd all these people come from? And I said, oh, I brought them. They must have thought I was insane, and I'm rocking up to, every couple of weeks with different people too. I kept bringing people in to get vaccinated because I was like, nah, I'm not losing anyone to this. I'm taking everyone. I took my kids, roommates, everything. It was just insane. And they started to recognize me as a lady that was like this convoy into the vaccination centre. Like, come on, one ambulance for Palmer. That was the other 2 for his ego. Oh, and Ned always has a brilliant take. I love that. And the thing is that I think she's right. His ego is so freaking big. It's like how he'd rock up to Parliament driving all these different cars, and you'd be like, what, one car wasn't amazing enough? You had to be weird and drive 50 of them? The thing is whenever you drive a different car, you ever notice that the gear shift can be in a different spot? How do they do that?
God knows.
Oh, because I'm not a very good driver, I'm always thinking, no, I wouldn't want to do that. I'd want to be comfortable in the car that I know super well, and I feel confident about driving. Not him. He'd rock up to one of these Parliament sitting days in a different car every day. But yeah, he definitely needed 2 for his ego, because he would have been panicked. And I bet you they told him exactly who he is. This wouldn't have just rocked up for anyone. If anyone knows anything about the Sunshine Coast ambulance service, you would know that it's sometimes bloody difficult to get them. And big old Clive gets 3, I reckon that there was definitely a moment where he said, no, don't you know who I am? Which is ridiculous. On a whole, that's just utterly repugnant. I've always laughed at it and its sense of humour, and I have to stop myself because I realise a lot of people can hear that I get ridiculous. I love everything that she does. Okay, the next one comes with some really, really, really sad stuff going on. Okay, so I don't know how many people are following what's happening in Ukraine right now, but there's one story here where either which way, it's a sign that things aren't going well. The Ukraine soldiers told Russian officer to go fuck themselves before they died on an island, 13 of them. So this isn't just an ordinary 13 border guards died in air and sea bombardment on Snake Island in the Black Sea after refusing to surrender. This is an incredible view.
Все. Нахуй тоже. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
And they died. All of them died. That's the most heart-wrenching thing, to know that not even a few minutes after that they died. And that kind of bravery sort of takes you back, and it makes you realise that there are things out there that we're never ever going to get to understand. Oh my God, it's so bad right now. And I don't think anyone quite can grasp exactly what has happened here. But I want to put that in a position of where, hold on one sec. That's the right one, isn't it? That's not going to, sometimes when I click on links, it'll drop me off from the stream. But I think the biggest sign of bravery is this one. The people themselves are ruined. There's nothing left. And then when you see that their whole government is fighting this, you've got everyone from President Zelensky himself entering the fight to make sure that they keep their country. When you see the part of Crimea that they took before in 2014, now you're looking at it on a bigger scale. But you can see over the years that they have managed to grab more and more land. He doesn't even need this land. That's what makes what's happening here so extreme. And I think that we're upset because we know that this is so far beyond what was needed to ever. Why do you need to do this now? Like, why now? What was the benefit in going after him now? Okay, so they've got tens of thousands of forces amassed at the border, and now that the parents are putting their kids on trains and they're leaving. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing them flee. They're not hanging around to see what happens next. And there's some very, very sad scenes that are coming up. But it doesn't end there. When you see the president himself actually don a military attire and take to fighting this battle. This isn't like a small thing that he's doing. Scott Morrison reckons he can't hold a hose. This president believes not only should he be holding the hose, but leading it. And I think that that's I can never ever position it right. Why is that? Get rid of the ad. No, it's not going to let me do it. Okay. So, did you hop out, Paul? Paul went. Oh, there you go. Add to stream. There we go. I don't know what just happened. You popped out for a sec there, mate. What did you think of the Ukrainian Prime Minister President entering the fight?
You asking me, Karina?
Yeah.
Well, he's certainly stoic, isn't he, when you consider where he came from? He was a comedian that he got the job. He was a comedian taking the piss out of the former president. and decided to run because he was one of the most popular people in Ukraine, and then became president. So he's certainly showing to be quite stoic, and I think the people are right behind him. I mean, he was starting to falter a bit if you look at their politics of late. They were starting to say he was a nobody, he was, he's hopeless and whatnot, but he's shown to be quite stoic, and I think he's getting a lot of popularity from his people, which goes to show some of the actions that you see in footage of people. Supposedly he's sharing arms, and they're taking up arms, just the people on the street. And there was a picture I saw today. I don't know how true it was. And you've got to be very careful about what's shared online nowadays. But there was supposedly an 80-year-old man turn up to a checkpoint with his briefcase, and in his briefcase was a couple of sandwiches, a couple of shirts, and some water. And he was offering himself up to fight against the Russians, which is pretty amazing. And I think just goes to show that people are just not going to give up there too easy. And I think Putin may have miscalculated in some of those things.
Didn't the Russian people themselves come out to say, look, we're not okay with this either? If I remember seeing that right.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I think that's a lot to do with, they've got pretty close ties. There's a lot of Ukrainians that have friends and relatives lives in Russia. There's a lot of people that live in Russia that have friends and relatives living in Ukraine. So, they're not too particularly happy with Putin about it. I really think at some point, I mean, I may be wrong, but I think it could come back to bite him on the butt. I think he may have overcalculated this one.
Yeah, I think that it was, here we go, Annette. Yeah, I think that he may have gone way, way too far with this. There was a young woman in Ukraine filling Molotov cocktails today. Think about those people protecting their freedom, and our clever clogs can't even wear a blasted mask and will shout about their right to go to the pub. See, Annette calls it out for what it is. How apt is that? We've got this moment in history where we can look to an actual authoritarian leader like Putin running around trying to dominate other countries, and you have people running around going, "You're ruining you're making it authoritarian, making me wear a mask." And you're like, hold on, let's look at the real moment here for what it really is. I remember when I was a child, I went to a primary school that had the Croatians fighting with the Yugoslavians when I was really, really little. And there was a knife fight actually ensued at my primary school in Harrington Street in Sydney. And I remember thinking that was the scariest moment. But it was because their parents had hyped it up to that point that it was a lot of stuff I didn't understand. But it became this point where there was a lot of talk about what they were doing and how they were doing it. I think Paul really did drop off this time. I hope he comes back. But I think that that's part of what makes this moment, is that we can see that over history. Oh, here we go. He's appeared again. Oh,
sorry.
Love. You're right. The internet connections can get a little bit funny. I think that that's a moment when I do look at my history and seeing that kids grow up with these sorts of scars, and you can't imagine the scars that the Ukrainian children and the Russian children are going to have. You've got to think the same thing happened in the German Wall when they were trying to very quickly, block off with the Berlin Wall. They had families that were on both sides of it that weren't able to see each other for many, many years. Whole families that were separated by a wall. I think that this will have the same devastating effect. And I don't think Putin's going to like the outcome, because he is going to be written forever as the bad guy that did this. And I don't think there's a book that'll ever paint him, even if he comes out a winner in this. I don't think that there'll be a book that'll go, hey, what a good guy kind of thing. And it's always going to come out to be, hey, what a jerk decided to take land that wasn't his. Haven't we learned something about not taking land that isn't ours and how badly it ends? I I think hearing China's reaction to this is amazing. China's reaction to this was, hey, no, don't do it. And if you do it, I think we're going to be in really, really big trouble. The thing that really annoyed me, though, was that we didn't have the same outrage when it comes to children in Yemen, or with the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, or other Middle Eastern countries. We don't sort of seem to have that same empathy level. And I'm seeing a lot of the detainees in refugee camps talk about that now. Like, it is sad what's happening in Ukraine, but we could actually care about when this does happen in different countries, or China's trying to overrule Taiwan, that kind of thing.
I agree, but I think you got to put it into the landscape that we're in, Corona, and that is we're in an election campaign, or an unofficial election campaign, and this bloke sees this as his children overboard moment, where he thinks, all the polls were showing he was in all sorts of trouble. That some of those tight seats that may have swung either away from him or to an independent is now maybe back in play. So he sees this as he'll just run this for mileage as long as he can run it, because he sees it as maybe a game changer for him. I mean, if it hadn't been an election being called in May, let me tell you, it would be treated the same as all the other conflicts that we've seen around the world. Like you just said, not too much about it. Yeah, we're going to do something about it, and then it's going to be off the page. This guy's going to run this for his front page for miles and miles and miles about it, because it's, that election's just down the road, and he thinks he can see it as a winner for him. I just don't know whether people are going to be that stupid and forget.
Yeah, that's
the last
question
9
I
years.
have for you. Do you think that it'll do something to revamp his image, if it will?
Well, I think that's what he's trying to do.
Strong man.
Yeah, he's trying to do that. But I think people are a bit of a wake up to him. He's got so many faces. I feel like he's all I can think of is the Brady Bunch. He's all the different pitches in the Brady Bunch. He's a hairdresser one day. He's a cutting hair another day. He's a welder another day. He's he's a man of many talents but got none.
Yeah, I think the thing that will always
except the job
come
he's
up
supposed
is,
to do.
I think it'll always come up. Like, he can never ever be photographed in like a McDonald's or whatever. I think that's always going to be his one issue. He can never ever be photographed around a McDonald's.
Yeah, that comes back to bite him all the time, that one.
I think the other thing that'll haunt him too is that he will never be able to go near a welding plant again. I think that's out of the picture. I don't think he can pull off going to the... This is why I'm hoping he doesn't do the SES thing, but in a way I'm kind of hoping that he does, because I'm hoping that the SES ask him to hold a hose. There's like a small part of me that's like, oh, please do it. The gain from this from me is monumental. Please do it.
I did see a thing the other day. Remember the guy, the firefighter in Bega, that yelled out the window during the fires? I don't know if you remember him. He said, tell ScoMo to come down here. He can fuck off, or something to that extreme. Well, anyway, he just came out again and said, "You're lost in Bega, ScoMo." Like, he just lost. Actually, it was New South Wales government lost in Bega, and he's sort of saying, you're going to lose again come federal time, because they're worried about that scene in the federal election, even though they have quite a large. I think they've got quite a large majority there, but as we've seen, seats in New South Wales recent elections, some swung 15-16%, massive swings.
Absolutely, yeah.
So federally, they're in. There's MPs in those seats that have quite similar margins that are really, really worried about it changing.
Oh, I tell you what, Hanson isn't running too well either. I think she's polling below 3%. I think someone was showing me. So she's not doing too healthy either. And Palmer United, they might be spending a bucket load of money, but I don't think it's really having any real take.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is either. And there's still stories going around that he hasn't paid his workers out yet.
Oh, no, he absolutely hasn't.
Yeah.
I actually know, because Queensland is one of them states where you have like fly in, fly out people.
Yeah.
And I actually know some of the nickel refinery people and know they haven't been paid. He
Yeah.
did do, just before I do that, I better address it, Matt. Jack of all trades, master of none, springs to mind. However, he can't do anything with competence. No, he can't. And this is like the brilliance of this. Particularly with someone like Clive Palmer, who's made a lot of money out of our resources. But if he didn't have that and that inherited wealth that he did gain, something tells me that he would not have anything. He kind of reminds me a bit of Trump when you look at him. You're like, no, you're a bit of an idiot, and I don't know how you got here or who put you there. But I'm telling you now, it's going to fade fast. Isn't the Queensland government going to take Clive Palmer to court over some of that stuff? I think that he could face real jail time for that stuff, for not cleaning up the nickel refinery.
I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, ScoMo and the leadership have been, again, bad advice. Again, we've got lawyers in charge of the country in a party that are predominantly lawyers. The Attorney General gave bad advice again to go up into Western Australia and spend Australian taxpayers' money defending Palmer against the government for its right to run its state. I mean, the mind boggles about where these guys get their ideas from. But as you said earlier, I don't think they win many, do they?
No.
Well, it's not their money, see? It's not their money. They don't care.
You have to wonder what sort of kickbacks he gets for putting these people in. And then he hands the people over to the LNP and then goes, there's a swath of new candidates.
Well, there's another classic one. I don't know if you saw it today. Remember the raids on the AWU back at the 2019 election?
Absolutely.
What's his office? It was all about smearing campaign.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah. And
it's conveniently just been dropped. It got a bit of coverage today actually it was Friday. I think they dropped it. They dropped the case on Friday. Cost taxpayers a shitload of money again. I mean, the Rock guy, he's an imbecile. The guy that actually runs Rock, he's an absolute imbecile. He doesn't keep notes. He doesn't keep any information about what he does. And they ask him questions in Senate estimates, and he's just an embarrassment. They're paying him a big, again, taxpayers' money, paying him a massive salary, and he can't even answer. I'll take it on notice. And they said, mate, you can't even answer a simple question. What are you taking on notice?
That was the other thing, is listening to Michaela Cash trying to explain how the media was there first and trying to say that, no, it wasn't her personally, but then she goes out, takes a phone call with one of the staffers and then goes, no,
Correct.
I've lied. And I absolutely did have a role in informing the media first. If you're going to tell me that she didn't know before that, I think that what that really was is her lawyer going, no, they're going to subpoena your records, honey. Buckle up. Shit's about to get real. Like, do not
that's why I just
around.
can't. I mean, I feel sorry. I mean, if Labor get in and they have a federal ICAC, it has to be retrospective. They cannot renege on that. It has to be retrospective, and they'll be flat out. They will be absolutely flat out doing investigation after investigation on the rorts, on the stuff that ministers have or have not done, on information given out to the media, given to papers. I mean, it's pretty obvious though. I mean, Michael West did a really good. I don't know if you follow Michael West, but he did a really good expose on the PMO's office, right? And in the PMO's office, you've got two ex-editors of Murdoch papers. Well, it's pretty obvious that every time there's a release of, some sort of leak comes, it goes straight to the Oz or it goes to the smelly graph, right? So you sit there and you watch it and you think, well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, they've got inside information. They're passing it on to their mates in News Limited, and they're the ones who get out the information. I mean, that's why I want to see a federal ICAC, because they really need to expose all this crap and the connections and the ties with, the Murdoch press, with, what goes on. And apart from that, I mean, it goes even deeper than that when you look at some of the MPs in the Liberal Party and their connections to the IPA. And who funded the IPA and who set it up? It was the Murdoch family set up the IPA.
Absolutely.
So it stretches so far and wide.
It's so big. It's like a cave that you'll never ever get out of. But that brings me to the other part about doing that. With the, if you remember, Rupert Murdoch hacked the Queen. Rupert
Correct.
Murdoch actually hacked the Queen. What makes you think he's not hacking LMP people, and that's how they have the
100%.
insights?
I mean, the guy should be in jail for what he did with that poor kid's family. In
Little girl.
England, there was that one poor MP that was the one that broke the whistle on the Murdoch press, and they went after him. They tried to discredit him. They tried to get rid of him out of party politics in the UK, and he turned out to be the prior in the end because he was right. It had, a kid was murdered, and he went out and, like they said, basically they were told they had to find the story no matter how they would do it. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, here's the check. And they, did the eavesdropping, and they taped the phone of the family that lost, the child that was murdered. And it was just appalling. I mean, the guy should be in jail for that.
Well, not just that, they pretended they sent text messages like it was that
Yeah.
little girl, and they,
Oh, it
for
was just
2 weeks,
appalling.
they were stringing the family along like she was alive, and that
Yeah.
just wasn't the case. I know you got to think that that's part of how this Liberal government behaves. It doesn't behave in any sort of dignified way. They have to do these lowbrow kind of things where even a dead little girl means nothing to them.
Correct. Yeah. No.
And you have to look at how they behaved around Princess Diana dying. England, how they thought people were going to be like, no, he's awesome. How did they think that? That's why Brexit had to happen. Because if Brexit didn't happen, the whole European Union was stopping the Murdoch entity from practicing. And they were like, no, we're not just saying England, we're saying in the United Kingdom itself, like the whole of the European nations.
Oh, that's massive, that Brexit thing. The Murdoch press were all over that.
And that was a coup by them because the European Union was like, no, you actually are pretty corrupt and you've done some really bad things. I don't think that you should have a position
or a
where
license.
because you're basically platforming someone who is anti-democracy, which is why the European Union was so adamant that no, you shouldn't be practicing. And ever since then, they've gotten every Tory possible to run the line of, well, why can't we just leave and do Brexit? But the unusual part that they forget in this rendition of history is that it was actually England who started the European Union. You dumbasses. You started something and you're the first one to pull out. You're like the weirdest people I can possibly think of. They wanted this one currency because they realised that people in England were living all over Europe.
But that just, it was, I don't understand. They had open market to the whole of Europe, right? And the smart thing that the Pommies did when they started the European economy was they said, well, we'll join it. Well, it was kind of we'll put one foot in, one foot out, but we're going to keep our pound. So the euro was always weaker than the pound, right? So I thought, well, you guys are smart. You've still got your pound. Your pound's worth a squeeze. Pommies go and travel all around the world, and they're getting double pretty much wherever they go. And so why would you leave a deal like that? That was a good deal.
Yeah, they got the best of all of it.
So you got the best deal that was going.
But this is how Conservatives operate. They operate to destroy anything. Have a look at what they did with the NHS. They just handed it to Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, please take it. And we're looking at them like, no, this is going to blow up in your freaking face. Pandemic comes. Okay, it blew up in our face. Now what do? Oh, we'll blame Labor.
That's always worked.
I'm looking at them like, no one buys that. I don't know how Boris Johnson won any of that. There was a moment where he hid in the freezer. He hid in the freezer to avoid.
You know what? This war has been perfect for him as well. I look at, there's two people that have benefited from this war so far that I can see in world politics at the moment, and that's Morrison and Boris. Boris was in all sorts of strife. He was probably on the premises of getting punted, I reckon. He was close. he was just stumbling along. Then all of a sudden the war comes along and he's standing up and Labor's gone quiet again because, it's all about we've got to help out, the European people. And he thought, well, hang on a minute, you're standing alone now. Why are you helping them now? You didn't want to be with them before, and now all of a sudden you want to be part of it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that I think even Biden wanted a piece of this pie, but he realised that if he did, loads of the wars that the Americans have been involved in doesn't
Oh
look
yeah,
great,
100%. Yeah,
and he can't cash in any chips on this.
yeah, that's right.
Look, but if you notice, only the Conservatives can. Only the Conservatives seem to be able to cash chips in whenever war is around. The left sort of doesn't grandstand on it. They're like, oh no, this is happening and it's bad. But the right seem to manage to turn their messaging into some sort of word salad where they go, look, we're winners! And
They
I'm
do.
like,
Yeah,
that's not how it works.
yeah.
You are not winners.
They wrap the flag around themselves, and all of a sudden they're better than everyone else at it. And you know what?
Ah,
And the worst part of this is people don't see the ramifications of it. I mean, if you've travelled to the US and you go to LA, for instance, if you go 2 streets back from the main part of LA, the streets are full of tents. That's the homes of the homeless people in LA, just LA. That's just one state, and a lot of those are veterans. So they're happy to send them to war. They're happy to, and this country's no different with our veterans. Where they're happy to send them to war, happy to arm them, happy to train them. But when they come home, they say, "Well, there you go. You're on your own now. I'll see you later," and they're all stuffed because of what they're seeing.
oh, that's really appalling. I think the thing that really upset. I think they even turned something like the Iraq War into their own little cabal of weirdness.
Yeah,
If
they
you
did.
remember, George
Yeah.
Bush had this mission accomplished sign, and I was like, wait, you're still there. Why do you have that sign? It's weird.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
saying that you're leaving? No, I don't think you're quite leaving. And he was trying to celebrate war. Worse than that, he had a whole banner and a boat and a champagne bottle, and I'm like,
Yeah, it was
oh
pretty
my
bad, wasn't it?
God,
That was
how
bad.
out of touch. And you look back now and you think Trump was the dumbest president that they've ever had, like ever in history. But you can see how they got there. You can see like the progression of, George Bush's speeches. You ever play those buggers back, you're gonna realize how they got there. The man cannot hold a speech for a while. Not
Yeah.
only that, he'd say things like, God told me to do it. What? No, that's not a thing. Only an American would believe God told me to do it and it's real. And I think that's what becomes the moment where you see these sort of things happen and you're like, oh geez, they're going to try to find a way to benefit from these awful moments. I think Iraq was the worst one that they've ever tried to capitalise on, and it just made them look pure awful. So when people are looking at Ukraine, they're like, don't you do it, it's not good. And then you got Trump running around saying, isn't Putin great?
It's true what Annette put up. They turned it into being an immigration issue with Brexit, and it's so true. And that's what got them over the line. It's the old story, conquer and divide, or divide and conquer, I should say. And all they did was turn it into an immigration issue. And now all the businesses are going, where's the benefit for us now? Like, it's not so good what they've thought it was going to be. And
Yeah.
not only that, it's breaking Ireland's agreement that they have with Ireland about no
Yeah.
borders in Ireland. That was the big thing about Ireland, Northern Ireland, not having
No,
borders anymore, tearing it down. I was there when I went to Ireland many years ago when they had those borders, and let me tell you, it's not a very inviting place when they had those borders there and soldiers patrolling the streets. When that all got torn down, they felt they were more part of society.
well, if
So
you
yeah,
remember
no, it's
the whole bombings and stuff that was going on between Ireland and England, and
correct.
the
Yeah,
whole thing going on, and now they're looking at the Irish backstop being back in place, and
yeah,
you can just see the anxiety of them. And now they got,
correct,
like Annette says, they got no truck drivers, they got nothing,
correct.
and now they're sort of holding their can, going, well, I thought it'd be better than this. And it's like, no, we told you it would be shit. What
Yeah.
part of this was ever going to end out in some amazing celebration for the people?
But not
There
only
was-
that, again, you had so many English people who lived in Spain because it was cheap, right? Again, they had the pound. They were living in Spain, living like kings. Now all of a sudden, do they stay in Spain or do they get a passport in Spanish? I don't think so because they didn't have to. They just it was like free reign. You could go through Europe because you were part of the European Union. Now they're all maybe they've sold up their home in England. Do they go back to England or is Spain going to grant them stay? Like you don't know, Now all of a sudden, all those people are in limbo land, and there's a
I
lot
think
of English that live abroad.
I think that this is like the old salesperson of how the LNP was trying to tell us that they would build a better NBN. It's that same sort of deal of like, we're going to do it better, we're going to be amazing. And you look at it and you go,
Yeah.
how are you going to do that? Oh, we're just going to buy the old copper infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy, how'd that turn out? Now they're like, no. Maybe the plan that was there before is the one that we should have followed. Oh, really? You lost billions of dollars, didn't you, buddy? I know that they're going to want back in. And I know England is going to want back in. They're
It's a
going to
mess.
forever.
It's
I
a
don't
mess.
know how the
Fishermen
Queen's
hate it.
winning.
Fishermen hate it. Businesses hate it. The paperwork's now massive. They've now got to build paperwork again. They basically put walls up around them again, England, and they hate it.
How didn't the Queen intervene and go, no, don't do
Yeah,
this?
exactly. Yeah.
Like, if ever there was a moment where you had a monarch that's beautiful and sweet and says things, I know that the whole Prince Andrew thing and her and all that kind of stuff, look, let me tell you, if it was my kid, I probably would be hiding him under the bed too. Which is typical of what a parent would do. I can kind of get where the Queen's coming from. It's bad, but I understand it. And I do have a lot of respect for the Queen as a weird moment. But I think that the Queen definitely should have intervened. And I think that she's always had that grace and air about her that was different. And you could feel that energy. Why didn't the Queen just sort of go, nope, people, you are being lied to. This is super bad. Step away from the treaties, this was never ever going to go well. But it gets even more interesting when they think that this is going to stop there, because now that they're dealing in the middle of this Russian conflict, there are banks that are closing the door on Russia that are associated with the world banks. And they're closing down all their money funds. So Russia retaliated with, well, how about I just hack you? So now there's a case of Russians hacking everyone again, and then you've got the banks closing in and then saying, well, Russia can't have any money. And then you've got England sort of going, yeah, but wait, we're going to be the heroes in this. I don't think there's going to be a winner.
There's a lot of countries that aren't part of the willing that the Russians have got their tentacles in. I mean, they're fairly big in Thailand, in real estate, in hotels, in dancing bars and whatnot. They're fairly big in Indonesia as well, in real estate in Indonesia and hotels in Indonesia. They spread fairly wide, and I haven't seen those two countries say, they're freezing out their money. So their tentacles spread wide, and then once they can get money to those areas, then they can feed that to other areas, you know what I mean? And I don't know if governments around the world are watching that and seeing that their tentacles spread much further and wider than they think they're at.
Which is why there was that very solemn kind of statement from I think it was Julie Bishop that said, I don't think the sanctions are going to do
Yeah, she did. She was gold. Yep. As she said, the foreign minister of Russia used to point out to her regularly, you've got no leverage. We don't trade with you, and what trade we have is very little. Therefore, you've got no leverage to tell us what to do. She said, I don't think it's going to work. So she was spot on.
And then when you have a look at it, you look at the hindsight, 2020 view of that, and then you're like, well, really, what can we do in this case? There's just going to be a country that is going to be ruined, and no one can do anything. Like, what can we really do to help Ukraine? other than make it known that we're not happy that they're doing it. Really,
Correct.
these sanctions aren't going to have the effect that they were hoping. And particularly when you have a look at, okay, so there's, so I almost did it then. So there's the, I've got to find it. One sec. I know it's here. I just have to find it. You got Prime Minister Scott Morrison pretending like we've absolutely got this in the bag, like he's got all the magical words to do it. Listen to how crazy he is. It's just, you want to find it the funniest thing you've ever heard.
Well, you saw today he donned on the old camouflage jacket. I mean, Commander-in-Chief.
Yeah.
He's just a total toss.
Compared to President Zelensky that's actually in the
Oh,
war.
it's just embarrassing. The guy's embarrassing, honestly.
Okay, here we go. Check out this. It's the funniest thing. They're just so ridiculous.
Right here in South Australia, up in space. And
oh no, this is the space one. This is even funnier. If you listen to his
saw this one.
Words. Hold on. Is this up as loud as it can go? I want it to be loud because I want people to hear the idiot. When you say something stupid, everyone is going to know.
Right here in South Australia, up in space. And we are an astronaut nation. Australians back into
What a
space
dickhead.
as part of these developments.
An astronaut nation. He truly believes that that's what. Where does he come up with these lines? Who is advising him to go? No. We're an astronaut nation.
The best part of that clip though was, it was when they had obviously a specialist in space there. It was a lady at the end of it and came out and said, well, it's nice to get the money, but we're going to need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars before we can really say we're even participating in it. So he can go down there and beat his chest all he likes, which is what he loves to do. But it was a bit embarrassing, to be quite honest.
I love it, Ned. That's the real Thunderbirds I go. That's the really interesting thing about those comments. Where would we have a space area? Like, where would you do this? We've been predominantly relying on the Americans to do this space exploration. What kind of money? I mean, if government wants to be the person that funds this, where do you do it? How do you do it? And whose money are you using to do it? Are you going to do an Elon Musk and just sort of get a really rich guy to pay the people to go around the moon and pretend like they've all got to have rockets that go to the moon? Like, how do they plan on doing this? And why are they wanting to go out of space? Like, what is their purpose? Do you notice they never actually say what they're going to do when they're going to be there?
No, because, mate, they know it's going to be for the next government who's in. I mean, they don't really care. They just waste money. I mean, I hope someone's keeping tabs. The first 2 days last week, I think it was Monday and Tuesday, he spent almost $2 billion of, remember he had that $16 billion slush fund in the budget for pre-election unannounced or not yet to be announced policies or whatever they were going to use it as, as a slush fund. So I can't remember how much this one was for the space, but I was trying to keep track of it, seeing, I mean, there's still got a fair way to go. He doesn't want to go around throwing too much money around because he only got $16 billion to play with, and he's already spent, I think, around about $2.5 billion. So, he hasn't got that much left, really.
I've been watching him from the start. Like, when they were like, we're going to fix a Great Barrier Reef, and then the people that they got to do it thought that they won the lotto. I've been watching him from the start, like, hand out this money, and then you're like, wait a minute, where is the Great Barrier Reef Fund? No, before there's another cent, I need to know where that money is. I have contacted so many officers over this money. One inside source, a staffer for Peter Dutton, his staffers hate him, loathe him, but they work for him because he pays them, alright? Now, one of his staffers clearly said to me, and I will never forget this phone call, it was basically, No one knows where the money is, but worse, we don't even know if there was any money actually handed over to that foundation. They might have thought that they won the lotto, but we don't know if they actually won the lotto or not. No one did a follow-up. I was like, what?
Just did the announcement again.
No one checked? Like, no one checked where the
God.
Great Barrier Reef Fund is? Oh yeah, and then they're doing a 2.0 on that. They're not done. They're going to redo this, like, as if the first time wasn't a shit show. Let's go again, and then just not follow up. What paper followed up on where that went? I have done so many phone calls as to like, what'd you do? I know that the Queensland government is heavily investing in the Great Barrier Reef. She didn't get a cent of this money, mind you, but she's doing like all this conservation stuff, and she's buying up land around it and saying, hey, don't fuck it up, you know, let's plant some trees, let's do this. You hear her say it and you're like, no, she means it. And you're seeing her, she even has this thing where she recently purchased all this land, and she said, I want to keep it in Indigenous lands care. And that's what she did. And a lot of people were making comments like, oh, it's just going to be another bushfire area. It's like, no, that's not what Indigenous care means. This means that the local Indigenous people know how to look after it. You absolute weirdos, I don't know why you're attacking her on this point. Which, I don't know what to make of that. Because this is so typical of how Conservatives think, that buying up land to keep it in government hands that is controlled by the First Nations people, how do they turn that into an attack job? I know, it'll be a bushfire. Yeah, because bushfires don't happen in other parts of bush. It just must be in land that Anastasia buys up for the Indigenous people to buy up. Who knew? I've never ever understood their ad hoc attacks. They don't even make sense, even on the frontal basis. I'm always like, are you sure that that's the insult you want to go with? Like, you're the little wheels turning, but I don't see anything actually working for you. That's why I get banned. You know what? I reckon my account has had more ban. That's why I got so many weird little socks that need to appear and go, hey, you thought that one through, didn't you, buddy? That took you a while to type that one out. And then they're like, but you can't spell. And I'm like, hey, I mightn't be able to spell, but I know the difference between what you're trying to do and the message you're trying to convey. Like, these are the weird moments for the LNP that I have to say isn't just disappointing, it's downright just wrong. And you can feel it in your soul. What they've done here is such a disingenuous attack on people. Do you feel like personally attacked by the way that they've behaved?
Honestly, I cannot tell you how many times I've nearly broken my phone and the TV. I find it extremely frustrating and completely and utterly annoying. And not only that, but the way that the coverage would be if it was Labor that was in power doing what they have done, I can't tell you how disgusting it is. It's just, you know, one party gets castigated for things and the other one just gets away with it willy-nilly. You know, and no one goes after them for it. They just sort of move on. Nothing to see here. Look over there. You know, I don't know. I find it really, really, really frustrating.
I've seen Michael West talk about it, but it doesn't like attribute the national headlines.
No, it doesn't.
It should.
No, it doesn't.
I think that's the saddest part. And you hear friendly Geordies go, hey, we should probably save this stuff. And people are like, hey, that's great, but how? You know, and that's the thing. We need to figure out how to do it. And the only way I know how to do that is with a Labor government. Okay, we've got Annette here. The Great Barrier Reef Foundation.
Good point, Annette.
Were as a surprise as the rest of us.
Lucy was on the board.
Billions. They don't have the organisational structure to deal with it. They didn't ask for it, and they had no idea how to use it. That was Turnbull's time. And was Lucy on their board that received that money? Oh my God! There's no bottom to their crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were attacking when Malcolm Turnbull did the no job, no pay policy. And I was like, that's a little bit weird. And they're like, no. His wife's on the board of different not on the board, she owns shares in different vaccinations. And I've gone, no, that's smart. That's smart. I don't care what your stance is on vaccine, or I care that you've got a stance on vaccines because they're absolutely the best thing ever. But I think it's weird that you have a position that people shouldn't invest in it. I agree politicians shouldn't, and they shouldn't benefit from the policies that they're making.
Correct.
Absolutely, 100%. But it's a good policy. I was like, how are you attacking for this thing? Like, it's a good thing. Back to that point of where they create these policies, they do have some very good moments. It's like, I don't know how many people remember, Tony Abbott was a firefighter. He still does firefighting. And back when he was Prime Minister, there was a few fires. You know, he still donned his firefighting gear and went out and did it, and did not do it as like a photo op. He genuinely did it. He was a genuine
that's right. He was in the
firefighter.
SES. Yeah, I got a friend of mine that is up on the north coast, and he's been a firefighter in the SES for many, many years. And when those fires were around, he actually had to source his own mask. And when he saw that picture of Tony Abbott donning a mask with oxygen on the back to go in and fight fires, he said, in all my 30 years in the SES fighting fires, we never had that equipment. So he was quite insulted by the photo, saying, you know, number one, he had to buy his proper mask on eBay, and I think he said it cost him about $90 from what I remember. And he was very insulted, you know, like they were trying to make him out, you know, he's Tony's, you know, lifesaver, firefighter, Prime Minister. Apart from all his other crap that he used to go on with, but it was just interesting from his point of view as a firefighter of how under resourced they really were, especially during that time with those fires.
I think that was around the time of the Black Saturday ones, wasn't it?
I think it was. Was it Black Saturday? Yeah, I think it might have been. Yeah,
And I think,
2019 fires anyway.
oh yeah, that wasn't those. We're talking Black Saturday. I think it was 2013.
Yeah, okay, that's way back. Yeah, no, this is during the last lot of fires that we had. That's when the
Was it
sort of.
2013?
Oh, actually, you're right. Yeah, he came out with those photo ops back then, but he also he appeared again during those fires, and he had all this gear on, and my mate said, "Mate, we never had any of that gear."
Would have been, might have been 2012. I know it was way back when. I know it was way before he even became Prime Minister. And then even as Prime Minister, he would still don the all the attire, and he'd still
yeah.
And he still goes in now and fights fires.
Yeah.
It's like Kevin Rudd. When the floods happened here in 2011,
remember that?
He goes in and he helps people. And then you have Anthony Albanese during the pandemic, and Bill Shorten rocking up to help out and feed people.
Yeah, remember that. Yeah.
Like, and you got Scott Morrison going, hey, I'm just going to go to Hawaii and chill out, because that's just how you do things. And I think that's part of what makes them so gross. You look at Scott Morrison, you're not even going to, rock up at a food shelter or an evacuation centre and help people out. You're just not going to do anything. Alright, so it's been a lovely evening, but our time is up. We're 4 minutes over from our normally weekly program. I would like to know, you don't have to tell me on air or not, but if you join me again next week, same time, because I really, really love your commentary.
I'll do my best. I'll certainly try. Karina, put it that way.
Because when I said to you I was live on air, I don't think you realised I was sending an invite. And I probably should have said that, so I kind of...
Yeah, no, I didn't realise that, no.
So I kind of was like, here's my audience. And that's... I'm so grateful that you came. Even though the audience is... always, gives out good talk, and always it's always lovely to have people part of this. I've been trying to have a net up myself, but her phone doesn't do what it's supposed to do, her iPad or something. It's not connecting. I don't know how technology works, and I cried when I tried to do it another way. There was actual tears. I cried like a baby.
That's right. I had trouble getting into it. Passwords and everything. Passwords drive me insane, to be quite honest. But yeah, passwords are like, I hate them.
I have teenagers for this, and they see my ugly face crying. All of that's real. I cannot script that. That is, as professional as I try to look for these things, I tell you what, there's nothing worse than a mum saying, no, I'm locked out for real this time. And it said, I'm locked out for an hour now. I tried too many times. And the kids are looking at me like, what'd you press? And I'm like, I didn't touch anything. And they're like, no, really, what'd you touch? And I'm like, okay, I'll admit to touching something, but I don't know what it was. All right, so if I can have you again next week, I would be honoured. And you know what? Better than that, you make a great host for this kind of thing, a little co-host thing that I can have going on. I need to get Annette sorted though, because her commentary is just amazing.
Yep, she's got good stuff going.
I'm hoping to see everyone next week for another episode of This Week in Politics, and same time, 6 p.m. if you're in Queensland, 7 p.m. if you're in New South Wales. Hoping everyone has a wonderful evening. I hope that everything goes well. Have fun. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.